Hey everybody, Tosan here with another complete and utter waste of your time. By the way, I'm not sponsored by G Fuel. I did put that in the beginning for a contest, but I wouldn't do that if I didn't love the stuff. I'm completely hooked on it, so if you wanted to try it, now's definitely the time with that fat 40% discount they have for a few days. Anyway guys, I've been playing beta a lot where I have all the talents and artifact traits and stuff unlocked, unlike pre-patch on live. But the game officially launches in a few days and you'll be able to level up and unlock these talents for yourselves. So I wanted to share all this info with you guys so when the time comes you're ready to kick some nerd ass. Anyway, let's get into it. For the first tier of talents, Fel Mastery is definitely the best. I mean, at least for PvP, it probably is in PvE as well. Fel Mastery does pretty significant damage to begin with, but buffing it by 50% makes it all the more significant. On top of that, bonus Fury generation, which is really good. Also, at the time that I'm making this video, I just wanted to let you know that Fel Rush is buggy in more ways than one. But the bug that really sucks is whenever you dash through targets, you can dash through 1 or 50 targets, it doesn't matter. Sometimes Fel Rush just doesn't register and do damage, nor will it generate Fury with this talent, so that's really annoying. I did post about it on the bug forums at the time of making this video, and I really hope they fix it before launch, because it's a pretty significant portion of our damage in PvP. Chaos Cleave is the next talent. It's pretty inferior, not going to really talk much about it. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is something that might be useful in PvE, you know, for cleaving multiple targets and all that, but I still think it's probably worse than the other two, even in PvE situations, but from a PvP standpoint, it's garbage. The next one is Blind Fury. Now, this is not a bad talent by any means, but I still definitely think it's worse than Fel Mastery. Mainly because Fel Mastery, you get so much value out of it constantly using it, and I-Beam is a relatively long cooldown that is easy to interrupt with any CC or actual regular interrupts, just like any spell cast. So very often you'll activate it and just get immediately stopped, and it's a relatively long cooldown, so it's not really worth investing that talent in PvP. Could be useful for leveling. I'm not totally sure which is going to be the best for leveling yet, but Fel Mastery is definitely the best choice for PvP right now. Next talent here, as you saw in my last video, if you watched it, Demonic Appetite is pretty baller for PvP, because not only does it give you a chunk of Fury every once in a while, but also heals you, so it's great for solo play, because this helps you keep yourself alive. I was told that this talent has a 15-second internal cooldown, but getting one Lesser Soul Fragment every 15 seconds is actually pretty awesome. Even knowing that you can't just get lucky and chain proc it, it's still pretty badass. In addition to killing people and getting the full, souls from them, together you get quite a bit of healing and Fury generation. And next we have Demon Blades, which is obviously better than regular blades. But this is definitely a PvE talent. I tried Demon Blades in PvP just for shits, and oh my god, it feels so empty. Just waiting for auto attacks to proc. This is definitely a PvE talent, trust me, don't take this for PvP. Now the prepared talent, normally I would say it's crap. Of course you might want to take it because you're tired of Illidan telling you that you're not prepared. But honestly, fuck that guy, and he has no right to judge you. You're a strong, independent demon hunter who don't need no man. And you definitely shouldn't let it affect your talent choice. Now, this talent actually probably will be useful in a few ways because it has good synergy with some other talents that you might want to take. For instance, there's a PvP talent called Glimpse, which was actually just buffed in a hotfix. It used to be kind of crappy, the talent Glimpse, because it was only 1.5 seconds, but now it is 3 seconds. Whenever you use Vengeful Retreat, you get 3 seconds of your defensive cooldown Blur. So this is obviously a very powerful defensive combination. Also, Prepared would give you Fury generation every time you used it, so this would compensate for the lack of Demonic Appetite. And again, if you have a healer in Arena or something, or RBGs or whatever, you don't really need the self-heals from Demonic Appetite. Now for Bloodlet, this talent has been overlooked a lot, and mainly it was overlooked because Throw Glaive was bugged before, and in PvP it was doing super low damage, but now they've fixed your Glaive Throw's damage in PvP and it's pretty significant. So this makes an ability that already does pretty good damage do triple the damage. Sure, it's in the form of a bleed over 10 seconds, but 10 seconds is not that long of a duration. With this talent, your Throw Glaive ability actually becomes your single hardest hitting attack besides your artifact ability, Fury of the Illidari. My friend was doing me a favor and running Recount during all of our battlegrounds together. Every single battleground, my Recount looked something like this. And of course, it's not always exactly the same, but I'll tell you what was exactly the same. Throw Glaive, Chaos Strike, and Bloodlet were always my top 3 damaging abilities throughout a battleground. Very often, by the way, Bloodlet and Throw Glaive would be on top above Chaos Strike. And also, as you can see, Fell Rush is almost identical damage output to Bloodlet and Chaos Strike. To be totally accurate though, as you can see Annihilation at the bottom of the list, that is technically Chaos Strike, because Chaos Strike changes its name whenever you go into demon form, so add those 2 numbers together and Chaos Strike is the clear winner. However, that's not very surprising, but you can still see that Throw Glaive, Bloodlet, and Fell Rush are all very significant pieces of your damage. Now, you might be thinking, why the hell is Bloodlet actually less than Throw Glaive when it's supposed to be 200% of the damage each time it hits? Well, sadly, it is a little bit buggy. Something causes it to not apply the bleed sometimes. I think it's absorbs. I'm pretty sure if somebody has an absorb shield, like an ice barrier from a mage, it simply won't apply the bleed. So hopefully this nasty bug gets fixed so it'll be doing even more damage than it already does. Still think it's the best choice despite this bug, however. Now this next talent is an okay option. I definitely think Bloodlet is the best one overall. However, First Blood does have its place. Now I'm going to try to put this into perspective and clarify the difference between these two, because this is probably the biggest and toughest choice. Most people are going to look at these talents and think, oh yeah, First Blood is awesome, you know, it doubles the damage of this cool attack. However, you do have to keep in mind that triple damage is better than double damage, so Throw Glaive, especially when you're taking Master of the Glaive and have 2 charges of it, is going to do more damage overall. And it's also free, it doesn't cost any fury to use Throw Glaive. Besides that, First Blood only doubles the damage on the first targeted hits, not for the full effect of the ability, which is AoE, whereas Throw Glaive will bounce to up to 2 targets, which means the glaive itself will hit up to 3 targets total, and the bleed will also apply to all those targets. So in a battleground, especially when it comes to padding the meters with raw DPS, you're going to do a lot more DPS with Bloodlet, especially if you're already taking Master of the Glaive. So in straight up raw damage output and DPS, Bloodlet definitely wins, right? Now you could also factor in the cost reduction of Blade Dance and say, I'm saving so much fury. But remember, it does change your entire damage priority. You wouldn't be using Blade Dance as often as you would without this talent anyway. So it totally changes your damage priority system, so it's really hard to quantify. But the only real selling point of First Blood is that it adds a little bit of extra burst when you're doing your big Swifty one-shot Demon Hunter burst, but that was also just nerfed recently. They nerfed our mastery on our PvP template. We lost about 7% mastery in PvP, which means Chaos Blades has 7% less damage bonus. So the big one-shot is a bit nerfed, which reduces the value of First Blood even more. So, moral of the story, if you're trying to burst something within 5 seconds, Blade Dance will assist your burst better. But for general DPS increases, the bleed is definitely better from Bloodlet. The only difference would be situationally, First Blood is going to give you a little more burst, but you have to keep in mind it's not a lot more burst. It goes from doing 90k damage to about 180k damage, which, you know, that's like a 90k damage bonus. That's not that much. Throw Glaive does about 110k baseline, and then it does 200% bonus damage in that bleed. Which means if you throw 1 glaive, it takes 4 seconds or 2 ticks of damage from that bleed to do the same amount of bonus damage from that talent. On top of that, if you're taking Master of the Glaive, you can stack the dot with 2 throws. And on top of that, it is ranged and free, so you can do this when you otherwise couldn't deal damage, like when you're being kited, or if you're kiting and poking another melee. Like against this Feral, when I don't want to go toe-to-toe with him, when he's popping defensives of course as well, I can poke him with Throwing Glaive with Bloodlet and Fell Rushing through him for significant damage. You can do a lot of poking and kiting this way when you don't want to go toe-to-toe. So with very basic math skills, it's pretty obvious that Bloodlet is the clear winner. And holy shit, I did not mean to spend that much time talking about just those 2 talents, but I've seen a lot of debate between those and people having trouble making the decision. So I figured I'd cover all bases and be as thorough as I can, so sorry if that was a little long-winded. Fellblade. This is kind of like a short-range Shadow Step that does damage and gives you Fury. It's also pretty good damage. It's about the same as a Glaive Throw or a Fell Rush and stuff like that. It's not bad damage, and the 30 Fury you get is pretty significant also. So I've definitely used it a good bit, and I will say it's not a bad talent by any means, but I definitely think Bloodlet is better. And the reason why I don't think Fellblade is that good is because when you're taking Master of the Glaive and have that slow, I never really feel like I need that additional little mobility. I mean, it's only a 15-yard range to begin with, which isn't bad necessarily because it can save a Fel Rush charge or something, but our mobility is so good, plus the slowing from Master of the Glaive, I basically never get kited, or it's super rare, and it's usually when there's like multiple people peeling me and stuff, in which case I'm outnumbered anyway. However, if you decide to take something besides Master of the Glaive and you don't have that slow available, an extra gap closer is definitely not a bad idea against those kiting classes. Alright, next up is Soul Rending. I already went over this in my last video, but if you didn't watch that, you get 100% Life Leech while in Metamorphosis. Now, in PvP, of course, the template has nerfed this specifically in PvP, so it's like 60% less effective or something, but this is still the talent of choice here. At least when it comes to solo play. The Life Leech with your Metamorphosis cooldown and also the PvP talent that gives you Metamorphosis whenever you get low on health is really good. So I definitely like it for solo play. The Life Leech is still pretty significant even though it's nerfed in PvP. And honestly, the other two talents just aren't that good. Now, Desperate Instincts I think will definitely have a place, however, in the future, especially if you're doing arenas. Let's say you're fighting a rogue team and the rogue constantly tries to kill you in a stun lock. This is where Desperate Instincts could be an extremely valuable backup plan, because you can't activate Blur while you're stunned, and if you're scared of dying inside of a stun, you know, while your healer's trying to keep you up, this could be a nice little safety net. Now, this Netherwalk ability, I really don't even know how to judge this ability. It takes your defensive cooldown, which is good for fighting with. Like, Blur is a really good defensive cooldown. 50% dodge and 35% damage reduction. It helps you stay offensive, you know? It's a defensive cooldown that works while you can continue attacking. Netherwalk is basically like a deterrence, and it's on a longer cooldown, so it doesn't necessarily help you trade blows with the target. So I honestly can't imagine where Netherwalk would be really good. I'm sure it'll be useful in some PvE scenarios, but for PvP, I'm drawing a blank. It seems really crappy for PvP, to be honest. Now, the next talent tier is kind of tough. Nemesis and Momentum are both really good. Momentum will definitely have more uptime overall, and I know it is the optimal PvE choice. However, in PvP it's a little weird, because I can see Momentum obviously being the better choice because you can just insert Fel Rushes into your damage rotation normally and constantly keep that buff up really efficiently. But in PvP, you're getting CC'd a lot and disrupted a lot, and you have to save your Fel Rushes against kiting classes, you know, to chase people. So you can't just use Fel Rush perfectly in your damage rotation against all targets. Sometimes you have to save Fel Rush for a while until a hunter disengages or a mage blinks and stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of the time you'll get plenty of use out of it because you're going to use Fel Rush to chase them anyway, right? But in PvP, you can space them out perfectly. If a mage double blinks, you're going to have to double Fel Rush, and then you didn't use that buff efficiently. So it's just annoying to have to kind of think about. Momentum actually might end up being the better choice even in PvP. I guess we'll have to wait and see with more testing. But Nemesis is a really strong choice also, and it's very easy to use, and I would highly recommend it. But I definitely don't have anything against Momentum either. I'm kind of torn between the two right now. The main thing I like about Momentum is the fact that you can swap targets all you want and maintain that buff. Now, Fel Eruption I used for a while and I liked it a lot, but honestly, I think it's the worst choice here overall. It's not that it's a bad talent, the other choices just seem to be better overall. I can't really think of a scenario where giving up the 20% overall damage increase is worth it for this minor burst ability with a small stun attached. Now, I think Master of the Glaive is by far the best talent choice here, mainly because you don't have any slows without this talent. Additionally, it also combos very well with Bloodlet, as I mentioned earlier. Really good damage and utility combination from these two talents. Now, Unleashed Power is definitely not a bad talent, but I just think Master of the Glaive is better because it's not like Unleashed Power is giving you anything new, it's just reducing the cooldown of your stun. But your stun, although it is an AoE and it's pretty powerful because it's 5 seconds, it's also magic, so if there's any healers involved, it can be dispelled. And, I don't know, a 60-second stun versus a 40-second stun to me isn't a huge deal, and the cost is also pretty minor. It just totally doesn't feel worth it to give up Master of the Glaive. It's just such a good talent. The last talent here, Demon Reborn, is a pretty shitty talent, I'm not gonna lie. So the power of Christ compels you not to take this shitty talent in any situation. Alright guys, we're almost done. Last talent tier, the home stretch. Alright, so for Chaos Blades, this seems like the best talent overall. It's a really strong talent. It's a 2-minute cooldown, buffs the shit out of your auto attacks, and also gives you a flat damage increase based on your mastery. Now, this was just nerfed indirectly because they updated our PvP templates. So in PvP, we actually get less mastery than we did before. So this is nerfing this cooldown by about 7% on the raw damage increase. However, I still think it's the best talent overall because the auto attack bonus damage, if you can stick to your target, is pretty significant, and still 13% damage increase is not bad by any means. Now, since it was just nerfed, of course I was curious if it might be worth taking Fel Barrage or Demonic over it after the nerf, but ultimately I determined that Chaos Blades is still the best, although my opinion could change in the near future with more testing because I really didn't test that much. Now, since Chaos Blades was nerfed, I've only recently tested Fel Barrage for the first time, and I will say it is a pretty fun ability to just be able to pew 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 shoot these little Fel missiles at people. It's actually pretty cool. However, there is one huge downside that kind of turns me off from using this ability. Now, the damage is definitely not bad, and having another ranged missile attack is actually pretty badass. However, look at this. I got locked out. Literally every single ability on my bars is locked out. Even melee attacks. You literally can't do anything but walk around like a jackass for the entire lockout duration. So obviously you can make like a stop casting macro and try to juke with this ability and stuff like that. But it's just annoying and it's risky because if they, do it really quickly and you get insta-locked out, it's a pretty painful thing to happen to have everything locked out. Now, it's definitely not bad. I'm not saying it's, not worth using just because of the lockout thing. I'm just saying use this talent at your own risk. And finally, we're at the last talent. We did it, guys. We made it through. Demonic is the last talent. I think this talent is actually pretty bad. Don't get me wrong, going into demon form any chance you get is badass, and it has good synergy with the Life Leech talent, right? But the main reason I don't like this talent isn't because it's necessarily bad in itself, it's just bad compared to Chaos Blades, and probably even Fel Barrage. The main problem is that it's only 5 seconds of demon form every 45 seconds, because that's the cooldown of I-Beam. So in conclusion, I still think Chaos Blades is the best choice, but it's not like the other choices are terrible or anything. Anyway guys, it took way longer than I thought to explain the initial talents, so I'm going to do the PvP talents in a separate video. Hopefully you're not completely sick of my voice by now, because there's definitely going to be more of it. But anyway, guys and gals, I hope you found this video useful. I mainly just wanted to prepare you guys. I know most of you don't have access to beta, so you're probably like, this information's useless. I only have 2 talents on live. But the game does launch in a few days, so I wanted you guys to be prepared as early as possible and not have to think and worry too much about your talents later on. Also, I figured I'd rather make this video now, so I'm free to power level the shit out of my Demon Hunter when the game launches. So stay tuned for more guides. The PvP talents are coming up next. It should take way less time, so I'm really sorry about the length of this video. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.